hotel, then you see the road. I'm to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Hazbinhotel meets John Wick. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of CaioCoia on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The circle of transportation made all the IMP workers and the owner teleport into an open area with parked black cars making a V formation in the street. The owner of the company was the first to get out of the circle with his human disguise. His red pupils sparkled as he grinned widely at the fancy hotel in front of him. As he looked at the reflection of his own face, he saw the dingy skin he had, with an elegant vitiligo part on the right part of his face. He moved his hands to brush his hair, as it had short but wild hair like it was the same style as his horns, a combination of both black and white colors on his hair. His clothing was his fashioned macabre style of black and red skull buttons. His sharp teeth grinned as he couldn't help but kiss his reflection. Looking elegant and ready to kill someone. Blitzo charmed himself, but suddenly he felt the slap from behind his head. Luna. What was that? Blitzo stomped as he looked at the casual annoying face of his daughter. As she used the same disguise she had on their challenge against his hateful ex-girlfriend Verosika. Her half-style of grey hair made her look like a total rebel girl, and a bit too skinny without her fur and with all her scratched shirt and mini shorts. Blitzo couldn't help but feel a bit uncomfortable with her style. Don't start making romance with yourself, Blitzo, we need to maintain a low profile, Luna commented as she looked annoyed at her boss and adoptive father. She looked around trying to see if there was someone around spotting them, and thankfully nobody was there. Need I to remind you that I'm the boss over here? Blitzo rolled his eyes as he was starting to get annoyed. Even when he didn't do anything other than just look at himself, he couldn't help but think his own daughter is doing that just to annoy him. Then both of them looked like a tan-skinned appealing woman with her black short hair, wearing her usual black top and ripped pants as she used in all her missions. Both Luna and Blitzo could see it was Millie and couldn't wait to see her reaction after looking at the reflection. Even if she looked like she got a few centimeters tighter than she was before, she was still smaller than Blitzo and Luna, yet she seemed bigger than usual. Her excitement about being on this kind of mission made her look at her own reflection. And looking at how appealing she looked, she couldn't wait to interact with other humans much better now that she has a disguise. And then from inside of the circle, a bag of 2 meters filled with objects was crossing through the circle, making everyone step aside from the sudden bag being released over the street. The group looked around to see if they were receiving such attention, but thankfully, there was nobody over the street, and it was in the middle of the afternoon, almost night. And they had the luck to don't take much attention from what would be the security cams around. But a sudden bag would start to create suspicions. And then the bag started moving, making everyone open their eyes wide, on how easily the bag was moving slowly. And from there, Millie couldn't help but feel her heartbeat much faster as she witnessed what would be the look of her husband. The white-skinned man holding the top of his sack was looking at the tan-skinned lover, his eyes were in the color of amber, and his white hair showed a good style as it was covered by the black and red fedora he was wearing, especially the white elegant chops who made it look so well designed over the skin. His bow tie was exchanged with a red tie as it had his dark blue shirt behind his black suit. Moxie. Millie couldn't help but whisper the name of the man in front of her. Privyet, Millie. It was the reply of the man before her. His Russian accent made not just Millie orgasm, but made Blitzo look at him surprised. And still using part of his voice, his accent was still in his voice. I think everyone is ready. Okay, how the F are you using accent? Blitzo prefers to be F than admitting the entrance of that F imp was a good one. But the question remained with logic. As the employee nodded to him. Sorry sir, I still wanted to see if I still can talk into my usual accent, but don't worry that I'm still using my voice like always I'm supposed to, sir. The accent from the Moxie was back to his normal, but from the way he looked at his own wife, Millie would have been enamored to F him in the middle of the street. The time is short, and I already want to register you all. Moxie pointed at the big hotel, making Luna, Blitzo, and Millie get even more excited to go. Holding his sack, Moxie led the group inside the hotel. As the metal grid opened itself in front of them, the group looked at the hotel as it was like any normal hotel, with a security guard taking care of the door, a helper taking the baggage, and the old ladies talking in the main room. Everybody looked at Moxie with their eyebrows raised, but he seemed to ignore them. It's all an act. They need to make sure that it looks like a normal hotel in front of everyone. Moxie whispered lowly, as they nodded their heads. The group walked until they went in front of a dark-skinned receptionist, wearing his dark silver suit and glasses. As he looked surprised to see a group of 4 people. "Good afternoon," said the receptionist with his traditional African accent. "How can we be at your service?" "I want to reopen a debt account," Moxie replied as the gleaming look from the eyes of the receptionist showed as he examined the group around the white-haired man. "Of course, sir. Are you going to make a registration for the group around you as well? Will I have you for 2 nights? The receptionist smiled, receiving a nod from everyone. 3 suits. 5 days depending, it can be more. Moxie raised 3 fingers as the bald man smiled as he computed some information. Moxie looked around and noticed a few changes around the hotel, as he looked at all his friends who seemed curious as to where this would lead. "So when did this place receive an expansion lift?" "Around 4 years ago. But I assure you, sir, that she didn't change much." The receptionist then looked over the balcony as it was 4 golden coins above the balcony. And using his hand replaced them all in his pocket. "Same owner?" Moxie asked seriously but with a tinge of hope behind his voice. "Same owner." The receptionist smiled as it made the assassin sigh, not just in relief, but in nostalgic memories as to how everything remained the same after all the years. As he looked at the balcony, the group noticed 3 keys over the balcony. Rooms, 815,816,817. The receptionist smiled at the group as he looked excited. As for the first experience over the hotel, I suggest the final floor above the hotel, with a special pool and spa for the winners. Is any drink needed? Maybe a front la twin, a Bourdain. Moxie looked surprised at his group since they were so eager that they were even near the balcony. Like nodding their heads like crazy. Blitzo took his keys. And was ready to run. But Luna grabbed his father's shoulders, cursing him like she was the one who was supposed to be running excited, but her adoptive father is making her look like a fool. I think a bottle Noble Beluga and maybe 2 bottles of each and more other recommendations, Mr. Moxie directed the receptionist who smiled at him. I'm Karen, or Sharon for most of the languages, and I will be sure to give more recommendations for your stay. Sharon smiled at the group who seemed to want so much to go, but Moxie wasn't letting them go for some serious reason. May I receive info about the new group around you to make the registration? Of course. Sir. Moxie then looked at his boss who was so excited that he stopped his place, and looked at the group around him. Composing himself, he decided to walk beside his employee. This is the leader and our boss of the new organization called Immediate Murder Professional, and we want to register our organization. Blitzo looked at Moxie and received a deep look from the receptionist who for some reason smiled at the demon in the most polite way. The Continental always had the pleasure to make a registration for new corporations. And since you are the owner of such a company, I hope that your stay will be pleasant as you understand and follow the rules of our humble hotel. The gentle voice but rude accent made Blitzo gulp in his place but then shook his head. I'm aware of the principal rules of this place. Since my employee annoyingly assured me and his co-workers to behave ourselves. Blitzo glared at Moxie who seemed to facepalm himself, but after looking at the face of Sharon who raised his eyebrows, nodded to him as he gave paperwork. Please, sign with your info and the info of your organization, as the data will be registered and will be notified by the owner of this hotel who will be very interested in your services. Sharon smiled as he gave a pile of 10 pages, as Blitzo glared surprised, and turned his anger to Moxie. Trust me, sir, the paperwork is worth it. He can exchange our currency for any money we need if we exchange the coins. Moxie knew that his first reaction wouldn't be good, but he didn't imagine he would love how the paperwork helped him to deal with the bureaucracy of his many missions. Blitzo mumbled some curses, and grabbed a pen from his pocket, as the others were waiting bored as Moxie decided to talk to Sharon. The sommelier, the tailor, the punky, and the glitch are around here? Moxie asked as he looked at the Sharon who seemed with his eyebrow raised. The sommelier is in Rome, I'm afraid. The tailor is visiting New York to show his new specialization, so in a few hours, he can make a visit for you. The punky is always around this city working on her own side projects, so I will make a call to her. The glitch is hidden in most parts of the country, just the owner knows her location. Want you I prepare a meeting with them? The receptionist made some annotations from his paper, as he looked at Moxie who nodded his head. Who are they? Asked Luna who walked beside him. She heard some weird code about the people he was talking about. Specialists in every kind of area, they will help us to prepare for the missions, Moxie said as he took 3 more coins from his pocket and placed them on the balcony. I would like to see them. Luna remembered the way Moxie talked about the coins, a favor would value more than money. And Moxie didn't mind spending all the coins he had. But knowing from the way he looked sad, it seems that he has another reason to call the 3 nicknames. Luna, noticing his mood, decided to not press further. Millie appeared on his side, as the receptionist looked at both so near, and he couldn't help but chuckle as he examined them. As he looked both at their hands, he smiled at seeing how in love the couple was beside him. Congratulations on your marriage. How long have you two been married, if you don't mind me asking? Sharon looked at the group who seemed to have their eyes wide open. Thank you, Sharon. We've been married for 2 years and a half. Moxie casually answered, as he then noticed a card over the table. It's a great honor to have a couple of lovers at Continental. The experience of feeling in love with the sunrise of this place makes the honeymoon magical from all kinds of experiences. If you ever have the longing to celebrate, you will be the first to know, Moxie interrupted the receptionist, as he blushed furiously, receiving a giggle from Millie, and a snort from Luna who rolled her eyes. I would really like it, but if you don't mind, can I have the meeting with the owner? Sir, I think the owner will be honored to make a special visit to your room for the meeting. And I made sure to schedule 1 hour before we make a schedule for your brother at the moment if he arrives tomorrow. Sharon interrupted in a solemn tone, making all the group unless Moxie look at Sharon with their eyes wide open as Moxie nodded his head to him. And done, finally. Blitzo slammed the signed papers and looked terrified at Moxie who seemed to nod his head. I thought it was crazy SHT, but wow, this place is like a palace. From this paperwork, you weren't kidding about the rules. Sharon didn't mind the swearing, as the rude boss of the new agency passed the info to him. He then smiled at the group. Well, it's all settled. Please enjoy your stay and have pleasant experiences. The receptionist smiled as the whole group was finally ready to go. Thank you, Moxie said after turning his back and walking away. It's always a pleasure to have you with us again. Mr. Wick, the group who was walking away stopped their walking, as they looked in shock at Moxie, who seemed to sigh and then continue his walking. After taking the elevator, the group looked at each other. Okay, how does he know? Blitzo asked as he glanced at Moxie who seemed to shrug. Continental is more mysterious than anybody ever could try to resolve. Never underestimate their power to gather info. They possibly even know what happened to John and they are preparing for his visit. Moxie said as he glanced at Luna who seemed to keep glancing at him. What? The sommelier, the tailor, the punky, the glitch. Knowing the way you talked. They aren't just specialists, Luna asked as Moxie glanced away, with his back stiffed. They are old friends of mine. When I was young and was still learning how to be an assassin, they were a group in training as well. I don't quite remember how I met some of them, but they always had my back when I had the worst kind of mission as possible. I've always been on missions using their specialties and using their skills to help me through the missions," Moxie said as he sighed looking at his gloves. "After years of being dead, and coming back for another mission like that. I think it was for the best to look at them once again and, tomorrow since they will be here we will receive the best clothing and equipment. So today it's our first night here. Let's enjoy it." At the moment Moxie said that the elevator stopped and opened revealing a good corridor of suite rooms available for them to enjoy. Yeah, Blitzo shouted excitedly as he took his key and went straight to his room. Luna rolled her eyes and went to her room as she used her cell phone, leaving both Millie and Moxie alone with the huge sack of weapons on the elevator. The couple walked slowly to their room. Millie, using the key, opened and admired the good quality of the suite. On where they are, with a good champagne bottle and ice bucket. On the table, there was a bouquet of flowers. Surprising not just Millie but Moxie as well. Oh, how appealing. Millie took the liberty to sniff the flowers, as she opened the curtains and noticed the high view from the window. Looking at the widening eyes of such happiness on her eyes, made Moxie chuckle at his wife, imagining her as a child or an employee who finally got vacation. Technically they are on vacation after the mission. The mission will be 1 or 3 days at best, so why not enjoy the hotel that he passed years using as his protection? Moxie sat on the bed and looked at the ceiling, as he imagined his time as alive again. Not noticing his wife jumped beside him and stayed above him, with her arms between his head, each of them pressing the pillow she was laying. Moxie could see her face near to him. The appealing dark brown face stared at him as her excitement looked above everything. Her amber eyes looked directly at his. "Hello, appealing." Her tone of voice matched the grinning face showing her teeth at the horniness expressed over her face. "I knew you were amazing Moxie, and I'm always happy when I'm right." The demon smiled at his lover and kissed her as she took that moment by surprise. She didn't complain, but she invested further in the kiss. Both in pleasure over the kiss they have desired for so long. After a long 2 minutes, Moxie has bitten Millie's neck, making her in pleasure. As she carefully touched the face of Moxie who seemed in deep love with her. "I'm not amazing Millie, you are. The one who saw the real me and support me whenever I need. For years I've tried to run away from this version of myself. But even if I sabotage and make accidents, you still always have been on my side. Loving me even if your parents don't approve of me. Or even not knowing about my secrets." Moxie received the kisses on his face, as he calmly touched the clothes of his lover and was ready to take an action. "Now I understand why John wanted to quit. Love is indeed a driver to make the most impossible things. Shut up and let's F." Millie shouted annoying as she carefully grabbed what was her right, and without further explanations. Both in a passion made what would be something not many in that hotel expected to hear for a long time. As she finally got into her room, the hellhound finally could have time for her to proceed where she was known. The look of the amazing view in front of her. The good hay was indeed something breathtaking. It's indeed so long since she was in a fancy hotel for free. And thankfully Blitzo didn't manage to F up with their stay, and surprisingly it went really well. After taking a look at the bedroom, it looked fancy, but now having free time what she was going to do until the next morning. Luna looked at her cell phone, and then she remembered the reason why she was there. She would have stayed at the office board if wasn't for the fact of the sudden mission. She has to admit, that angel actually made her day hell in Wick. Luna looked in the direction of the room on her side, remembering the way the little imp reacted to her, why a dumb F-er like him would sacrifice his life to make his brother live with his lover. Moxie sometimes is just a dumb demon, and she knows that. But inside of her she couldn't help but feel a bit of envy and respect for the little demon. The part that was bugging her was the fact that he acted like a weak F-er and smiled from all the cursings and all the beatings she and her adoptive father does to him. And he smiles and laughs as he enjoys it. Moxie once told her that she and Blitzo were the ones who actually helped him to humble down. Why does this F-er want to be humble if he can be the best from the entire hell? If he was the best, why does he want to be humble? If I know. Luna snorted as she heard the knock on her door. She was starting to get annoyed. She didn't even get inside of the room, and there were people to annoy her. If it's Blitzo, she will make sure to shove her entire claw on his ass and rip it apart. But to her surprise at the moment she opened the door, she found a basket filled with 2 whiskeys, 2 vodkas, and 3 wines. All of them are relative with fancy labels on them. Luna is starting to love this place already. Until she starts to hear the moans coming from her neighbor's room. Oh Millie, Millie. Moxie, Moxie. Luna's eyes went wide open, noticing what that was about. Oh hell no. I'm out of here. Luna decided to grab the entire basket and moved inside of the elevator and pressed to go to the last floor. For something like that, she prefers to be in the pool or even have a spa than her 2 demons having SEC next to her door. Blitzo went inside of his bedroom like a king and jumped at the bed like a greedy king who ruled the world. The comfy bed who gave it a good embrace, Blitzo couldn't help but laugh at the free days. Ha, easiest money ever. 5 days enjoying the hotel. Paid by my own employee who knew that receiving a job from a cherub would be like taking candy from a baby. Blitzo smiled at the all possibilities of what to do during the day. Since they will start the mission the next day. Blitzo was feeling so happy that nothing could disturb his peace. Trin. Until his own cell phone rang. Oh, F. Blitzo usually doesn't give his cell phone to anyone. But there was just one being who had his personal number. One he cannot refuse his calls. Clicking the button, Blitzo already snarled at the cell phone. Stolas. Oh, Daddy. Did I disturb you? Did I become a bad boy? Want to punish me? The corny voice from the other side made Blitzo shrive but maintain his composure, ignoring his pleas. Blitzo decided to be quick and decisive. I cannot, I'm at the start of the mission, Blitzo said coldly, but then he heard a purr coming from the other side. I'm already turning off Stolas. Please, if you already found something better to do than just come to hunt a human, come here Blitzo, you can make all the positions you want here in the mansion. The corny voice of the demonic owl almost made Blitzo feel tempted. But shaking his head, Blitzo glared at his cell phone. I wish I could Stolas, but this mission I'm here will take 5 days. And we already are paid for our stay. Since my employee is paying for everything, since is a personal mission for him. Blitzo grinned at the sound of disbelief from the cell phone. A personal mission and your employee are paying for you? Oh, Blitzo. I knew you were low, but not that low. Stolas said as a tease, however Blitzo scoffed. Taking money from a couple of imps. And here I thought imps wouldn't be lower than they already are. Yeah, keep teasing. But for your record. It wasn't a couple, just Moxie Wick who hello. Blitzo was already ready to rebut, explaining that just Moxie who was paying, but after saying his name the cell phone itself became mute and turned off. Trin. The sound of the cell phone call again made Blitzo glance at it suspiciously. But after turning on the cell phone, he felt a shrive after hearing the voice of his supposed lover. Explain. The voice of the Highness of Hell said directly, making Blitzo notice he wasn't actually more teasing, but after talking to the prince himself. Blitzo, I know you are there. What do you know about the Wicks? The boogeyman and the sack man, Blitzo said as they started, after explaining since from the beginning, and receiving humming sounds from the Prince Stolas himself. He was almost afraid of what the Prince of Hell would do to him after knowing that. I assume you are at the Continental, right? Stolas asked, making Blitzo look at the cell phone in surprise. How did you know? As the humming sound of the coldness in the air stopped and then became warm again, which wasn't actually a good sign. Well, since it will be 5 days or possibly more, knowing what you are getting into, wait for me, I will be coming for you to pass these days with you if you will not come to me. I will come to you Blitzo, and I want to be punished. Stola's horniness once again won the battle and made Blitzo sigh in acceptance. He was already in an awful spot, maybe it was a mistake to tell the name of Moxie. But then after turning off the cell phone, He could hear the sounds of the next room. Ice, I need more ice. The corny Millie shouted. You want ice? Here is. The husband said as the next second the sound of a pleasured scream would be heard from the next room. Airs. They are doing this, and I forgot to bring my cameras, to wreck everything. Blitzo snarled, but then he didn't feel bad about Stola's appearing at the hotel to make him a visit. Yeah, enjoying 5 days or with our luck more wouldn't be so bad. As both couple finally got their CLMX, Millie's head pressed over Moxie's chest, and Moxie gasped in a deep breath in joy. Finally. We could have our romance, without Blitzo making a video. The thoughts crossed Moxie's mind, as he looked at Millie who seemed smiling and even tired. The knocking sound of the door made both lovers interrupt their resting, as the little disguised man walked at the door. Taking some minutes to finally put on his pants. As Millie got dressed in her clothes again, forgetting the panties she was wearing before. Opening without looking at the magic eye. Moxie's eyes went wide open as he saw an elegant man with a dark gray suit, and good years of experience crossed his face, as his black with a gradient of gray crossed his hair and elegant mane of his era but the good eyes and face of experience, he couldn't help but see in his eyes the sign of disbelief and a forgotten faith which was born again. Winston, Moxie whispered as he gave a warm smile. Maximilian, the owner of the hotel gave a sincere smile mixed with relief of finding an old friend again. 5 years ago. It seems my words haven't changed your decision. The elegant man wore his casual red robe with golden details around the sleeves. Adjusted his elegant glasses as he sat beside the man who was enjoying his whiskey with lemon and ice. The man took off his fedora as his eyes showed signs of tiredness and exhaustion. He placed his own fedora over the table as he gave a sigh. I'm afraid not, Winston. The man shook his head as he looked at his own glass, smiling sadly at the table. As the man glanced around from the view around them, the breeze was a signal of how the winds are changing the direction for a drastic future. You know that place has a trap waiting for you and John at the moment you both arrive at the central bank, don't you? The man said another fact, which the man nodded his head in agreement. I know, the man didn't even deny the problem, however, the plan he created would just end in one result. That's why I'm doing most of my preparations behind John's back. He just needs to focus on the leaders of the 8 pillars of the octagon. Once I open the perfect distraction I can stall time enough for you to search their whereabouts and make him finish the job. It's a suicide move. Maximilian, Winston took his glass off as he looked deep into the man's eye, who was trying to avoid eye contact. Moxie. Why? Why are you going that far? I want to know why you are doing this. Moxie, who was avoiding the glaze of his friend, looked at his reflection on the glass. The waves over the liquid messing with his reflection made the assassin come to mind with one problem in his life. Making him sigh in sadness. Winston, I'm tired. Moxie whispered as he gave a weak smile, taking out his own gloves. And after taking the flesh from the fabric, Winston's eyes opened wide from the view under the fabric. The deep burns and scars remain in the hands of the man in front of him. Tibet was up. It was 5 long days there. I think my hands can't take it anymore. And from all the assassins appearing behind my back since the first day over there. It's been difficult for me to rest. My name's too big in the underworld now, I plan to at least take a day of rest. But now John received this opportunity. He has been with Helen for almost a year. I think he made his decision. And I think he has something I wished I had a long time ago, a choice to leave. Tarasov tried his best to warn you both about how this mission is too difficult for him to handle, Winston said as Moxie nodded his head to him. It was an intentional trap for Tarasov, and obviously he wanted you both to not take the bait and make you avoid taking this mission. But now John has a chance that nobody has, and when he wins Vigo will have nothing against him. Moxie not just confirmed that John will do everything to make the mission accomplished, but even gave a true determination on the word when. Vigo may be a coward, but he isn't foolish to try to hold John when he knows how dangerous John is when he is focused. And you want to help John because you will make sure that he will be at his full capacity even. Winston placed his glasses in his pocket, as Moxie finished drinking his whiskey on the glass. Even if I had to die to make sure he is perfect for the mission, Moxie said as he looked around the area. The garden behind the hotel was appealing, as the smell of flowers in the air made him feel at peace with his own choice. If you want the truth, Winston, being the best assassin of the world, without an idea on how to improve yourself, and all the targets so afraid to even utter your name, and all assassins over the world trying to fight you to see who is the better has stopped being fun a year ago. I cannot even relax without having all this paranoia circling around. I don't even have a house anymore, they destroyed it and shamelessly never gave me the money, even if I killed their boss and 2 of his sons. I have to spend all my savings on the Continental. I just need a reason to know, why should I come back from the mission? Winston knew how serious Moxie was from the depressing thoughts passing through his friend's mind. Remaining polite, he couldn't wait further as he nodded to the decision of his friend. Taking from inside of his robe, he laid over the table a dark gray envelope. I think this may help you to have a reason. Winston passed the envelope over the table, as he made sure Moxie was looking at the envelope with curiosity. Moxie decided to take it and open it as he proceeded to see a dark green letter with words in gold. As the eyes of the assassin proceeded to read it calmly, he couldn't help but feel his heartbeats getting faster, as his eyes went wide open in shock. Are you for real? Moxie couldn't help but feel the excitation in his voice, as Winston couldn't hide his smile any further. It's exactly as it's written, Maximilian. The high table gave their approbation for you to start your own Continental hotel with their support and investment. And you don't know how much my brother is happy to finally give his blessings as the elder. After all the years of studying is finally paying off, Moxie. I know you and John have great potential to be the new manager of Continental. My father would be proud of your work. As a kind smile appeared on Winston's face, Moxie couldn't help but feel his hands shaking. I can't believe it. 12 years, and I can start my own hotel. That means that I can finally stop playing the game as just an assassin, and have a chance to be another kind of player. The manager, Moxie smiled as he pressed further his hands as looked at the eyes of his friend. But then, his smile froze, feeling the pain over his hands. The burning was enormous as he gritted his teeth in pain. Moxie then imagined the couple inside his mind, his brother finally showing signs of happiness and true kindness surrounding someone. And with the same resolution in his eyes, Moxie decided to place the letter inside of his pocket. Thank you for the offer, Winston, but I cannot promise that I will come back alive from this mission. I need to be a realist. If it wasn't for the mission 5 days ago, I would have promised that I would come back alive without a scratch. But now I felt the mortality appearing in front of me every time I step outside from the Continental. Winston, after hearing the resolution of his friend, showed a sad frown on his face. The disappointment appearing clearly on his face was a signal that he was indeed upset he couldn't make the mind of his friend. Not because he wanted to, but because he could hear the truth behind Moxie's words, even for a few seconds. Winston could see that Moxie was on his limit. And this was indeed his final mission. So what do you want me to do for you, Moxie? Can you give me your final requests? Winston knew that once the meeting was over, the friendly face and the light inside of the eyes of his friend would be seen by him for the last time. Moxie let out a tired laugh. Come on, Winston. It seems you don't know me. Bring me my favorite meal, my favorite drink, and all the explosives you have. After all, if you want to die, prepare yourself to spend all the life you have. Moxie smiled at Winston, who nodded his head to his friend as he was starting to walk away. And Winston. After hearing Moxie calling his name, he stopped before looking at his friend, who seemed with his eyes closed, even showing tears of his resolution of death. Thank you for helping me and being my friend. Please, when I go, tell them that I thank them for being my friends, and I'm sorry if I don't make it. As the shreds of tears could be fallen from the face of the man, Winston nodded his head as he walked away from the top floor, leaving the man enjoying his final hours of living. As you can see, Lexi, the fire over the bank is almost spreading over the street. Nobody knows how it happens, but the neighbors over the region said there was an immense explosion that would be the cause of all the fire over the central bank. The fire was so strong that not even the bravest of our firemen can pass by over the entrance. And from the unstable fire the building has a high chance of collapsing. What was that? Holly F, the building is collapsing through the fire. It's unbelievable, Lexi. Thank God there weren't any victims inside of the bank since it's almost 9 p.m. and they were closed at 5 p.m. And surprisingly, even after the building collapsed, the fire wasn't getting weaker. Does it seem that it would be a new kind of terrorist attack? Who knows? It's up to you, Lexi. I'm Jeremy Spurg, from Channel 9. The man who was with his back on his chair watched through the television the bank which seemed to be burned to ash. With his eyes closed, he gave another drink of his favorite wine, as he looked at his own reflection. Ars est explosio nata post seniors vitae prioris. Sacrificium vitae pro libertate diligentis. Art is an explosion born after the ashes of a previous life, the sacrifice of one life for the freedom of a loved one. Winston quotes in Latin one of his friends quotes when he talked about his art of the kill. As he turned his head to see the man wearing a black suit, without breath, unscratched but with his eyes red after falling rivers of tears, the silence from the man beside him made Winston take a piece of paper and give it to the man who was looking at him. He gave his life to you and your lover, your freedom relays on this address don't make his death in vain, and make sure to kill every single of these insects. The man took the paper in silence and without saying a word, his actions spoke louder than any kind of word. Since that night what happened at the bank was the last straw before the start of a bloodbath from what John Wick will do on that night. Moxie, if you knew the kind of monster you released after your death, then you would be ashamed because it's truly a shame that you both wanted to retire. Since the high table would find your services the most beneficial to the world. But I hope you finally can find your rest. And enjoy your rest, whenever you are. Actual day. As the eyes of sadness from the same man who has said his goodbyes to his friend, Winston's eyes sparkle with happiness to once again see and recognize the face of an old friend. The same tired fake smile from years ago was replaced by a different kind of tired smile. It was the smile of someone who he knew was genuinely happy to see him again. May I enter? The owner of the hotel asked, leaving the guest looking at him in disbelief but smiling at the moment. I would be stupid if I don't let you in. Please come in. Moxie moved aside as the elegant man passed through the room, as he looked at the woman who was surprised to see him. Millie, I want you to meet Winston, the owner of this hotel. As the girl who seemed tired from her exciting hour but still smiling at the satisfaction of love, the black top and her torn black pants, and the choker around her neck, made Winston look at both her and his friend who seemed so passionate with each other. Hello, it's nice to meet you, Winston, and thank you for your reception. I'll have to say the service of this hotel is amazing. Millie offered her hand for a handshake as she said that, but Winston started chuckling as he looked at Moxie, who seemed so in love that he didn't even mind the way Millie was addressing his friend. Taking the hand of the disguised demon, he moved to him and gave a kiss as a gesture of gentleman. The pleasure is mine. Winston then bowed slightly at the girl, who seemed surprisingly touched as he then looked at her and her husband. To see, I would not just see an old friend, but knowing he has such a lovely woman beside him. I have to say these 5 years must have been quite an adventure for you. Moxie, who snapped from his thoughts at the way he heard Winston talking about him, gave a slightly sheepish smile. As the owner looked at his body language, he knew he may have touched something his friend was hiding. After sitting down beside the table, the trio decided to take a glass of champagne to light the mood for a while. I have to say, Moxie, 5 years. Winston's monologue as the couple looked at him in silence, listening to what he was going to say. For someone who made a suicide mission, you managed to erase your existence not just over the city, but in the entire world. Big names of assassins said you were too good to die, so you must have hidden during the explosion, and then you left the country to live a pacific life in some kind of way that not even our best searchers could find you. Moxie flinched as he remembered the same assassins who wanted to challenge him when he was on a mission. Some of your Friends believed too well that you had died from that explosion, even me, Winston confessed as Moxie clenched his teeth and Millie touched the left arm of his lover. His attention was divided to her, and she gave him a reassuring smile. The high table believed at the moment you sacrificed yourself to finish the job for Jonathan, so in the end you received a deceased folder in the archive. Moxie sighed as he looked at his wife, who seemed sad but in agreement on the decision he was going to do next. As a friend, Moxie, I would like to ask what happened to you during these 5 years, and why. Winston, I became a demon. Winston stopped after hearing the words of his friend who interrupted his questions. I died in the explosion I created, and the next thing I knew, I became an imp, one kind of little demon, and I live in hell with my wife. Winston looked at the wife of his friend, who seemed smiling weakly at him, not showing any sign of fake body language. And with his eyes wide open he opened his mouth slowly. But at the moment he was going to reply, Moxie slowly took part of his disguise, which made his skin become red like a scarlet. And looking sadly at his friend, couldn't help but sigh in sadness. The reason that I don't go to the world of the living, it's because I can only go when we have worked at the agency. My boss Blitzo gave an assignment about how we work and will have a meeting with you when you want to have it. He will explain in detail how we work. But mostly we just kill civilians who made people go to hell. Revenge because of what the living people did to them mostly. Moxie placed 3 cups of champagne, which he offered to Winston, who took it kindly and in silence listened carefully to the words of his friend. But mostly our work doesn't involve rules from the high table, so we usually don't try to kill a professional assassin or someone really important. But mostly easy kills. And you are making sure that you are not breaking the rule number 2, Moxie? Winston coldly asked his friend, who raised both hands. OWOAWA. Come on, Winston. Rule number 2 just applies to us when it comes to supreme hirings like professionals. Try to say you are going to apply the rule to your clients who literally live in hell as sinners who want revenge on all the mothafs who F them. Isn't that kind of the opposite of the rule? Moxie asked as Winston tried to find words to refute, but thinking for a few seconds, couldn't deny his words and nodded his head. It seems you are right. Sometimes the rules do not apply to people who seek vengeance. The manager agreed, even if wasn't pleased to know it. Sorry for being in trouble, but what kind of rules are you talking about, sweetie? Millie, who was listening carefully to them explaining, finally decided to say something surprising to both of them. Oh, sorry Millie, I mean, when it comes to working into the underworld, there were some moral codes created which are undeniable for all the assassins. Moxie decided to raise one of his fingers as he described to tell the rules. 1. Follow the goddamn rules, which is about the rules of Continental and the consequences of breaking them would be terrible. 2. Death is not personal. In the way of assassins, you cannot resent the ones who killed you. Because it would be just a normal day, and you have a nice conversation with someone who could kill you next hour, it's just a normal service day. Oh, this is what it means about rule number 2, which we are kinda not following with a good reason, since most of our clients want all their deaths to be treated as personal. Millie smiled as she giggled from all the killing she did with the rapists who made the girls suffer, from cutting their pee and making them suffer from their own remedy. But looking at Moxie and Winston, who both nodded their heads to them, she forgot she was interrupting them. Ops, please go on. Number 3, only the rules are sacred. I talk about my own experience, since mostly the people I made contracts with usually made one deal just to try to kill me behind my back, which made me sure to never trust too much on my clients. And always be sure to understand the rules of the society we live in. You never trust too much on the high table because they can try to use and manipulate you, so I think the Continental is the only place you should have your faith in the rules, since they get exams all the time to make sure the Continental follows the rules and isn't compromised. Moxie said as he received a nod from his friend, who interrupted her lover and decided to continue. Number 4, art is pain and life is suffering. Sometimes you must kill what you love or your love is going to die and you don't have another choice. And before you ask, it wasn't about you or Moxie, but sometimes assassins had to kill their lovers because of a contract they did. Brutality is omnipresent all over the world, art is the reflection of artists, the pain, and pain produces many appealing things. As many assassins try to employ their mastery of art, they suffer much pain while delivering it. Winston explained as Millie gasped shockingly at Moxie, who seemed tight in his fist. She gulped as she raised her left arm as a shield to protect her husband from the way the manager saw him, making both surprised by her action. While Moxie chuckled from the way his wife was protecting him, Winston could see how much that woman or demon was willing to protect the man who actually killed hundreds or even thousands and became one of the legends that the mafias feared. Number 5, nothing comes easy. Winston, as he said that, both Millie and Moxie groaned like a couple who knew deep inside their hearts how truthful was that rule, which made Winston chuckle from both their reactions. It seems you both have in mind the meaning of this rule. Winston, my friend, if there is one thing in hell that I'm sure about, that this rule sucks, really really sucks, and sometimes, it doesn't mean even work, it does involve SEC as well. Did you know that my boss has been doing everything to record my SXL activities with Millie? Moxie sounded really annoyed by the fact that even Winston couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Oh come on Moxie, he wasn't that bad, I'll even enjoy the idea of our own video. Millie touched the face of her lover, but Moxie wasn't going to accept such an idea. Millie, the problem isn't about us having our SEC in videos, the problem is about him recording. I wouldn't like to be watched by my own boss and be judged by him for all my SXL activities with you. Moxie was so annoyed with the idea of Blitzo appearing on his fridge to record their SEC that even made him shoot on his head 1,000 times if it wasn't for the fact he was his boss. Winston, it's been a long time since I enjoyed a good moment of love with my Millie, so you have my thanks. The owner, who watched that exchange of words in amusement, couldn't help but chuckle at the way his friend talked. It seems he finally found the boss he always wanted. Well, I'm glad that the hotel made you two lovely birds have time to rekindle your love, but now let's continue about the rules. Number 6, action has consequences. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and it doesn't change no matter who you are. If you do something wrong, if you screw off, or you PSS someone off, there will be consequences. Winston calmly told the couple waiting for their reaction. ISF Tarasov took John's car and killed Helen's dog, Moxie simply stated, making Winston raise his eyebrow at him. Looking at his partner, Millie nodded angrily at the idea of the BSTRD who did it to her brother-in-law. As I said, action has consequences. The boy indeed created a huge problem for his father. I have pity for all the BLD which will be spilled on the days it will come. Winston sighed, noticing how the crazy children doing on these days are making all the hard work from their parents be in vain. Winston. I literally came from hell because of this SHT. Do you want an even better consequence than that? I am retired. Moxie snarled at the image of how the BSTRD had the ball to make his own brother suffer like that, and Winston slightly sighed in disappointment. This will lead us to the 7 rule, the game never stops. No rests, no reprieves, no timeouts from the game. And the action never stops for too long. It never stops. After saying that, Moxie slammed his fist on the table, making Millie jump from her place. BS. This is a rule I will never follow again. While I was alive, sure. I'm okay. But I'm dead, and if they want to follow the new rules of the hell I'm in, I'm not going to play the games involving the high table ever again. And there is a side B of the same rule. Don't be a B. I'm not going back to that game, and that's final. Moxie shouted angrily. He, with all his anger, was shaking the table beside them. Moxie, calm down, we are not even on the same rules. We are already not technically following the number 2, we can even ignore this rule. Stop, please. Millie was a great advisor when she wasn't the one who was freaking out. She gave the full support that made Moxie stop shaking in anger, and take deep breaths to finally calm down. Sorry about that, sir, but can you tell us the other rules? Sure, my lady. Rule number 8, style. You have to have style in the underworld of the criminals, and it wasn't about the amazing weapons and armory you have, it's the combat style you use, the way you kill the others, and the way you dress for the kill. Winston said as he pointed to Moxie, who was finally calming down. Whatever you do, even from going to the grocery shop, to even going to kill the others, you must look good for whatever you are doing. If you are going to complain about my clothing, sir. It doesn't matter who you are. Ah well, Millie was going to strangle the elder man who seemed to be joking about her style of clothing, but then her husband held her tight on the shoulder, making her stop in her place. That's why I asked the tailor to come here tomorrow. It's been a long time since that time, and I want to make sure all the agencies look amazing. Moxie said quickly as he looked at the betrayed look from his wife. Millie, he is a great friend and he would be offended if I didn't tell you about him, so I want you to meet him. Millie calmed down, as she grumbled in her place, making both adults chuckle from her childish style. Both, let me tell you, Winston, she has a great style of killing. She can swing an axe in a way she could kill 5 guys in one attack, and look like a Valkyrie ready to reap souls. From the sugar in his voice, Millie blushed as she turned her head away, making the man chuckle even more. I can imagine that. Anyway, let's for number 9, be honorable. Every criminal has their own set of rules and principles they follow from their own set of ethics and morals. You must accept that every criminal in this world has a job to do and you can't fault them for trying to accomplish their job. Their own set of honor. Winston said, which made Millie stop looking away, and meditate on the words said from him. Making her actually not think badly of the way she sees her job, but looking from Winston's perspective, it seems what she was doing was an honorable thing, making her job even more pleasant to do. Thank you, sir. This actually made me see my job in an even better mood. Millie said sincerely as she felt the warm hands of Moxie, who nodded his head to her, but then slowly his smile grew wider as he waited for his friend to tell the last rule. And the last rule. I'm sure you will like it. Number 10, gratuitous violence is essential. As Winston said that, Millie opened her eyes confused, as she looked at her husband. In other words, Millie, violence is never the answer. But the question and the answer is, Moxie didn't even finish that. Millie raised from her chair excitedly. Yes, yes. Please. Millie finally got a rule that she would enjoy the system. Ah, finally found a rule that is something related to me. Moxie smiled at Winston, who seemed to smirk the way knowing how the girl looked so happy from the last rule. Well, I have to admit you found someone interesting, Moxie. Such a good lady was indeed 1 in 1,000,000. Winston complimented as he saw the man looking at the love of his life as he sheepishly scratched his head. I know. I say that to myself every day. Moxie smiled as Millie was still moving around, but then noticed she was being watched by both of them, and she then giggled nervously. Well, Moxie. Why don't you tell me how you two have met? I still have time for an old friend. Winston, as he looked at his watch, knew that even if he was in a meeting at the end of the night, he always has time for a good friend who just came back from the dead. Stupid rabbits. The gray-haired punk mumbled as she took the elevator to the final floor. At least this booze is what I need for my day. Maybe being around the pool and drinking a few bottles, and tomorrow I will be ready for the worst hangover of months. As the door of the elevator opened, Luna couldn't help but have her eyes wide open. Oh, holy F. Luna whispered as she saw what would be an unbelievable pool, 2 layers of pool crossing each other forming a giant V in the middle. As the hotel looked even bigger from the last floor, she could see the pool in a V shape. She saw what would be some guests who were dressing in their swimsuits, and enjoying their stay in the pool. Some even drank as the afternoon looked relaxing for everyone. As she saw around the pool, what would be an amazing garden, which would make feels like she was in a private garden of sorts, and from that garden, there was what would be an entire spa house. It was enormous. Since it almost defies the physics laws. It was like she was into a big movie with millions of budget on this only floor. Luna carrying the basket of boozes, she walked as she saw some guests looking at her, and even smiling at her. It seemed strange, but from all the reception it seemed rather nice. But annoying as well. Entering the spa house, she could see the resemblance of one receptionist with the same one who was on the floor who gave them the rooms. The woman was dressed in a suit and looked smiling in a mysterious way. "Welcome to Elysium. I received the details of the receptionist under us for the new guests who seem to experience the hotel for the first time. The service made by us will ensure that all the assassins and criminals are at their best on the next day, relaxed and focused to kill whatever they want. For the new visits, I always recommend the package of sticks. It always starts with a good mud bath, with volcanic rocks massage, with a good aramance therapy and a massage with a good ending, and for the CLMX a good bath in a tub of black beer." The receptionist with her smile slowly described one of their menus, and each of them made Luna look at her from amusement to curious and then to very curious and in the end with a shock RSNG. If her disguise wasn't that comfortable, she could have seen that her tail was swinging excitedly with every item on the menu. 5 coins will do. The number of coins was slammed at the table, as Luna didn't show any other reaction than the longing to have a taste of the same treatment. "Wonderful. Please follow me. We will show you where you will receive the treatment." The receptionist smiled warmly as she got up from her seat, and moved away leading the human disguise to what would be the most pleasant night of her life. Many got curious about how the management allowed wolves to get inside the Continental since one wolf didn't stop howling for an hour. Maybe someone was giving a vet treatment over the hotel, nobody actually knew the truth though. As the hours passed by, many would say the owner doesn't actually sleep since he works every hour at his hotel, but that wasn't the truth. Winston always had a schedule of when it was a good time to sleep after making all the meetings the night. As he finally got his time to get to his favorite section of the hotel, the bar underfloor, he wanted to pass his time reading a good book as he planned to make a meeting with the net. He had to follow the tracks of a Russian boy who made not just one, but 2 dangerous assassins come across to the Continental in a few days. Winston would be grateful to Vigo made such a stupid boy, since he brought to death a friend he didn't see for years, and now learning about the life after death, it was interesting to know that in fact is what people say, assassins after dying to go straightly to hell, and since the system itself could be a failure, the death itself could bring the loophole in the rule number 2. It wouldn't be his problem, but to the high table who would be in check now, since they may try to manipulate some of their assassins. If they messed up, a team of assassins coming from hell would try to wipe them out, and that would lead to chaos in the underworld. But still, it wasn't his problem, since Moxie would be sure that the agency he works for would follow his rules as neutral ground. He was glad that this problem could lead to others. The problem would be trying to explain that to his brother. As he tried to read his book, his eyes then took a glimpse of a slender body sitting in the chair next to him. As he examined the man near him, his eyes went wide open and afterward became a frown. The man was pale with makeup, but his elegant hair and red robe, which he used the same style as himself, were smiling widely at him. "Hello, Winston." The voice greeted warmly, as the both of them knew the tone of that voice. "Is there something you want to tell me?" "Hello, Great Elder Stolas," Winston said, annoyed as he could see that the man beside him usually would have called before making such a meeting, but appearing without any information usually makes Winston sour and in a bad mood. "Ouch, it's that the way you address me? Using my title at this moment? Just because I didn't call you before or gave you any warning? You wound me." Stolas made a dramatic pose, as the man sighed annoyingly. "You don't even say you were happy to see me. It's been so long, and we just talked by telephone. And now I'm here and that's the way you greet me?" Winston glared at the Stolas, who seemed so dramatic, that even he couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Okay, if that's what makes you feel better," Winston sighed, finally accepting the BS excuses the man was saying, and after coughing, he looked more solemn. "Hello, brother." The club was close, as all the dancers and barmen left their shift to finally take time for their rest. Leaving what would be the most 2 elegant men over the entire building, each of them staring at each other, as they watched carefully a chessboard and drink passionately a glass of wine. 3 years. It's been 3 years since you didn't call, nor have you visited me right away." The older man concentrated as he moved the knight piece in the position. He said as he looked at the smiling person in front of him. Stolas, how was the trip to India? Oh, it's such an experience, Winston. It's fun to see how people would go so low to receive a bit of money. The criminality over there is by far surprisingly good. I never saw such a hierarchy of high table work so fine in a place like that. The smiling man moved the tower piece in the position where the peon of Winston was. He stretched his arms as he looked deeply at the tired man in front of him who seemed focused on the game. And you seemed really tired, Winston. Usually you don't ask for a game of chess at this hour. Winston stopped staring at the board, and looked at the glass of wine in his hands. As he reflected on who he met today, he couldn't help but feel his face raise a simple smile. It's a good way to end the day for me. I was celebrating with a friend before you came. Winston tried to remember when he passed hours listening to someone talk to him about his experiences after their last meeting. Winston could count by his fingers the number of people who he cared about that. Moving the bishop to take the tower. He cornered part of the king at the board. Check Stolas, tell me the truth. Am I a bad friend? Stolas, who seemed to be smiling, started at him in shock and frowned hardly. What? Of course not, you are not a bad friend. What made you even cross that into your mind? Stolas decided to stop playing chess, as he waited for his brother to tell the meaning of his words. Stolas, Moxie came here today. Then the moment finally came. Winston looked carefully at his own half-brother. He didn't move. And that was everything Winston needed. How did you know he was here? Stolas looked at his sibling, conflicted about what he was going to say. Many excuses crossed inside of his own mind. But one final decision was made at that moment. Decided to make one last move on the chessboard. Checkmate. Stolas, the one who seems to be the one who enjoys playing games the most, sighed at the view of his own brother, who looked surprised at the movement. Winston, you have been using the same strategy during all these years. Your mind is becoming predictable. Blinking slowly, the man who remained quiet looking at the chessboard, got up and turned his back to his own half-brother. Stolas, I'm getting old. No, we are getting old, my dear brother. And every day I felt the clutches of death approaching me from this job of being the guardian of the Continental. My only hope for a successor died 5 years and his brother was retired. Sometimes I wished to ask father what I should do, but he died. Winston fulfilled his glass with wine once again, making his own sibling flinch, and bite his lips. Stolas tried to raise his hand to say something but hesitated in doing it. But after watching his own brother settling the chessboard again, he looked at his glass and looked at his own reflection. The great smiling Prince Gothia, the one who could make demons fear his name, and has a great SEC life with the imp he passes most of the time. He has been shameless during almost every moment of his time. Why was it so difficult to tell his own brother? Winston, there is something I must tell you. Stolas felt conflicted, but receiving the curious look from the human in front of him, was enough to make him have the strength, and decided to give the info over the board. Father is alive. What? Winston asked, surprised as he looked at his brother in disbelief as he looked crazy. He then chuckled in disbelief. Hee, I never knew you had such humor, Stolas. But I recommend you not tell such jokes at this late of the night. Do you wish to meet him? At the moment Stolas opened his mouth, he knew the choice had been made, and from that moment he wanted to focus on only one thing, the truth. As the sounds of seriousness in his tone made the human look at his brother surprised, and without thinking twice he nodded his head to him. Why yes, Stolas, do you have his number? He looked at his own brother offering such a thing. He never had any contact from his parents, only he received the news of his siblings and relatives from Stolas himself. He even received an invitation letter from a half-sibling whom he was curious to meet, Ozzy, who seemed to have his curiosity on cabaret somehow. Still, there were so many secrets that Winston was shown, and was in the dark most of the time. But the most important one was his father was dead from age, and he and Stolas had to take care of his family business in the world. Sighing as he examined his own pockets, he grabbed a paper and ink, and with his own eyes, it shinned into a deep red color, making Winston's eyes go wide open by surprise. Stolas then proceed to grow feathers around his face as the other pair of eyes appeared on his face. Brother, it's a long story. But I think it's time to tell you the truth. Stolas got up from his seat and walked beside a door. As he placed ink on his fingers and marked it on the wall, he looked at the corner of the room, and with a snap of his fingers, his clothes grew in fire, making Winston look at his brother in awe. As the lights of fire lighted the dark room around them. At the wall, a glowing mark of red ink proceeds to spin, and in a demonic fashion a rupture appeared around the wall and a portal appeared over there. Why call if you can meet him in person? As offering his hand to his own brother, the doors of hell were open to the secrets never once told, and now Winston, who seemed to not sleep for a long time, shook his head and shrugged off the tiredness he had over the day. Who needs to sleep anyway? Can you lead me, brother? Winston smiled as he held the hands of his own brother. As both chucklings proceed to jump to neither helm. The hell itself. As the appealing night crossed the sky, a man in a chair was admiring the view of the city as he drank a cup of tea, as the sound of the snoring of his lovely one was kind of a remedy for his nerves. The man took off his own disguise and getting back to his own height, he proceeded to look in a direction of somewhere. Jardani, why does this SHT has to happen to us? The man who spoke in Russian was in fact a demon imp who started to drink softly. If you let me do this, you will not have to worry about killing more assassins. Please don't come. Hee if your brother has the same mind as you, I know that he will come here for sure. At the corner of the window, the demon who talked in Russian was surprised to see the slender imp who was sitting at the corner of the window. Sir. Moxie appeared to be more surprised about the fact that he was understanding the little praying he was having into another language, than the fact that he was spying on him and his wife again. How did you? I know how to speak Russian. Maxim, the leader of the IMP organization, was surprised once again by the fact he was telling the truth, with such skill of speaking the tongue fluently. As the demon's eyes went wide open from such a statement, made the demon in the window grinned widely at him. So that's your true name. For the fact that your native tongue doesn't have Mox in any kind of name, I guessed using a similar name. Which is by your reaction. I hit the nail. Moxie, who looked at his boss, was surprised about how correct that was. But couldn't help but smile sadly at him. You are correct. Maxim Jovanovich is my true name. Born in Podhorj, Belarusian SSR. But my mentor who taught me a lot about being elegant yet dangerous said Maximilian was an already used name that would make such a cliché, then he said if I used Maximilian I would be elegant and unique at the same time. That's why he renamed Moxie. The demon who looked so concerned about the future decided to grab another chair and place it beside his side. As the demon took the moment and sat on his side, which then was greeted by his employee's glass of whiskey. Sir. Thanks. Blitzo took from his hands and swallowed all the content in 1 second, such an elegant, but in a kind of way, Moxie smiled at his own boss. A night of peace was like a calm before the storm, one that nobody could ever guess what would lead up to the future. You know that I will make your life a worse hell if you don't pay up from the future SHT that will happen. I'm aware. Moxie nodded as he sadly watched the appealing lights of the night dance around the houses and hotels of the area. Which lead to a comfortable silence for both of them. That said, I'm enjoying all the room services, and I even came from the spa after I heard my dear Looney having a great time on there. And oh boy, this place is AF bomb. It's so amazing that I'm suspicious about what kind of F up stuff this place is for making such great hotels, and how the F I didn't know about this in the first place. Blitzo excitement was indeed a good review at Moxie's ears. As he closed his eyes he then proceeded to remember. Sir, Moxie said after taking a deep look at his reflection on the vodka in his hands. This society can look like an elegant luxury, a good and appealing life. But in truth, it's like a war every night, we have to protect ourselves against who could possibly try to kill us. Acquaintances with that we shared a good drink and laugh, with can come to us in the next hour and kill us with a bazooka with our names on it. Paranoia in the air, BLD on the streets, bullets on our bodies, every breath inside of you can be a signal of your own breath can be the last, that even if we follow the rules. Blitzo, who raised his eyebrow, noticed the Moxie's eyes closed, as his voice sounded cracked, like someone who actually didn't want to be part of that world anymore, but as his tone sounded like that it felt like nostalgia at the same time. And if somebody breaks the rule? Blitzo sounded interested in the new tone of voice from his employee, while still sounding like a loser. It felt like a good sound of experience behind his voice. Someone who actually knows the SHT in the world. Moxie let out a dry laugh, as he took a piece of paper and marked it with a single pen. He then, after writing a number followed by some zeros behind it, made Blitzo's eyes go wide open. $15 million. Here, this is the price of your head. For all the assassins over this town, and the next, until every success you do 1 million more in your head. Until, Moxie's hand, who was with a glass of vodka, was launched away from the mirror and he raised a finger pointing at his own boss. It was my turn to act. 30 million. It's the price I want for all my targets. No penny more or a noir penny less. Blitzo was caught by surprise by the sudden movements of the demon in front of him. He could imagine that simple movements like that could potentially kill any kind of rookie, but the audacity of showing a finger to him made Blitzo glare at him. Don't you dare to raise this finger like you could kill me, you shitty. Blitzo grabbed the finger of Moxie, who raised his hand. I would never do that, sir, that was my days a long time ago. Moxie sounded so secure and relaxed. Maybe it was because of the drink he had prior to his boss coming in, but from the tone of his own employee, Blitzo knew that this skirt Moxie would never hurt him. Even in times he annoyed the hell of him, he remained the passive SHT he was. Which made Blitzo drop his guards, and make Moxie continue talking. But like I said, nobody is safe. Even if I break the rules, I know that my life would have become a living hell without rest. Blitzo, knowing how serious he was, had questions that would make a good way to pass the time. If you would break the rules, how much do you think they would pay for your head? Blitzo decided that it was a good time to play the game. His employee smiled at him, and looked at the horizon. If I kill the first 10 groups, I think the maximum I could manage before someone could come to me and blow my head would be 45 million. Moxie sounded so morbid as he talked, like his life wasn't worth to him, but the way he told made Blitzo's mouth become a huge grin. Oh, look at that, haven't we someone cocky at this moment? Are we? Blitzo used his elbow to poke Moxie, who smiled at him. Trust me, 40 million of all the assassins come to the entire world to try to kill me would be a fair fight with all the arsenal I would have with my sack. From everyone who would die in my hands, would have enough weapons to create a massacre. I wouldn't care if it was dozens, hundreds, or thousands. I would find a way to kill myself and take down everyone with me. Moxie smiled as he imagined himself like the last time, destroying hundreds with his body in a giant explosion. He looked at Blitzo, who seemed to chuckle from his reaction. Well, say yourself that after you kill yourself. And in truth that's what you did. But I'm pretty sure that you made a stupid mistake which would lead you to die in the first place. Maybe you were too slow to pull the trigger, or your reactions are poorly to simple things since you're too stupid or unable to not F up. Blitzo used the time to drink another glass of vodka from the bottle, and hearing the chuckle from the demon in fedora, made Blitzo raise his eyebrow at him. He, SHT, you even sound like him, but like a third category way. Moxie chuckled at the way he sounded and drank another glass. He looked at the moon. My mentor, he was someone of such high caliber. He always said that we should do things in perfection, and yet he always found imperfections and mistakes in every single detail, and he taught me to find my mistakes on my own, leading me to improve myself in ways I never thought were possible. He said to me, if you can shoot 1 bullet, then you should be able to shoot 2 bullets at the same gun. You're too slow. If you pull the trigger 1 millisecond faster, you could shoot 3 bullets at the same gun. You are too amateur. Know your place, man. I'm such a great mentor. From such high praise by the demon, Blitzo noticed an air of admiration from the man beside him, even if his mentor sounded like a snobbish F-ass. He sounded like an ass, Blitzo said as Moxie decided to laugh. Really? Because I think that he is caring in a way. He is ruthless and never sugarcoats things. He always buys the best weapons and wanted us to figure it out by ourselves. He never showed any emotion instead of indifference and snark remarks, but yet I and John knew that we never needed to prove anything he said that would make us insecure of ourselves, waiting for the probation of a guy who can lie to make us value our insignificant lives like a lie. From the tone of sincerity, Moxie could see the silhouette of what would be the man who trained him and John before. I know that my mentor would have liked to meet you. You are different from Vigo. Oh yeah? Tell me about the mentor. If you have such high praise for him. I want to know about the man who you seem to have high regard for him. Blitzo, if he didn't know that tomorrow they would have to kill someone, he could have told that the night was indeed a good night for vacations, and it was a good time to chill out from all the problems he have. I have one thing I always know about my mentor. In the most elegant part of the palace deep down at the high sector of the Pride Ring. Obsidian walls covered lavender color fabrics, with most parts of the pillars covered with gold and jewels, which created such elegance around the palace. One human and one demon owl walked as the many demons bowed to them, mostly imp servants, hellhounds bodyguards, and sinners who became slaves from the one who desired to challenge the king of that castle. In the direction of the halls. Corridors made by bones covered with rubies, the elegance of the morbid castle, indeed was something most sinners wouldn't even have the pleasure to meet. A man who knows how to be indifferent but has charisma at the same time. A demonic owl opened the doors of the main room, making the two siblings surprised by him. Transforming the many forms of the demon who seemed to be so fine with the atmosphere around him, it showed his final form, revealing his own demon father with a black beard on his face. The feathers were black like night, and his elegant clothes showed a leather overcoat with a good elegant red cape showing the elegance of a noble with both hands behind his back as he walked with his straight column like a sovereign demon of the entire castle. The crowd on his head showed the deep signal that he was in fact someone of high hierarchy on the hell. A man who belongs to the high hierarchy and can make all the assassins in the world bow to him, knowing that touching him would mean like declaring a massacre to the entire family. If all that signals weren't enough, his entire presence made all the sinners and demons bow to him as moved his cape and walked slowly at the brothers who waited at the door. Hail the King Paimon, one of the bodyguards said aloud, which made all the sinners and demons raise to their places and with all their voices claim his name. Hail, hail, hail. The demon's son recoiled as he looked at his half-brother who seemed shocked to witness someone who seemed so powerful and so intimidating, but at the look on his face, the youngest sibling walked slowly as he remembered the posture and the presence in front of him. Father. The human whispered as the demon looked at him in such indifference but yet with a smile on his face. Oh hello there heir, who are you again? Paimon said as he seemed so curious about the human as he looked at his butler. It's so many sons. I think that's Winston, your rightness. The old imp butler commented, which made the owl recoil himself in surprise. The human. Wow, I never thought that I would see you here so late, my dear son. Paimon said as walked to his own son and gave him a quick hug before releasing and shrugging his shoulders. So you finally must have reached your 13 years old and you claim your responsibility to Goetia family. Winston looked confused at his father, but Stolas came to his rescue and coughed, taking the attention of his father. Father Winston already has 67 years old, and he is working through the continental hotels as you instructed him. Stolas said, which made the Owl King look at him surprised, and then give a satisfaction. Yes, indeed, the Earth Continental Management. King Paimon said as he looked at his own son, but this time with other eyes, 67 years old. You have indeed gotten old, Winston, but let's talk about this later now. Speaking of management. Someone who was one of the first pillars of the dark world of criminality, someone who was there when the rules were made, and had the entire black market on his hand, someone who all the mafias obeyed his voice, he would say jump, and all the assassins would ask how high. Vox. The king snapped his fingers, as the static around the technology around his body made such sound, and appeared behind him a slim television screen with sharp teeth and a good slender body, and a red bow tie. Your Highness. The technology demon bowed to the king, who raised his hand to him. There is a demon on the streets who receive a mission to kill one of my sons. Find him and offer this to him, 4 mullets with 5 million souls each. 10 mullets with 10 million souls dollars each, 6 mullets with 25 million souls each and 1 penny. To kill the person who hired him instead of my son. The solemn deep voice of the demon owl made Winston's eyes go wide open, as Stolas himself gasped in surprise. My lord! 270 million souls. Vox, who was amazed at such presents, looked at his own king in such disbelief and static after hearing such an absurd price. And 1 cent. To be clear that even if someone could try to raise the price, I would send the entire mafia from Valentino to kill the lower sum who would try to make such stupidity. Now go. As the king ordered the overlord, his static showed a creepy smile at knowing who was, and who wouldn't mind actually just dig the grave of messing with the Prince Goatiera. Poor king, he didn't know that he sentenced his own daughter-in-law. Or did he? Then his smile became even more creepy. As his body disappeared from the entire static and made the king look around at all his subjects. You may leave. The king commanded as all the sinners, imp servants, and hellhounds turned their backs and left the king himself looking at the boys in front of him. You grew up a little Stolas, you made a huge mistake which I need to clean for you. He. As the indifferent voice came from his father, his chuckle was enough to make the bodies of both sons of the king tremble. Making Prince Stolas flinches, and the king raises his eyebrows and glances at the human in front of him. Winston. It was the only thing the king has said, as the elegant man glanced at him. In silence, the king slowly walked beside him, and surprisingly he managed to give him a feather and a jeweled collar, and since most of the servants and butlers around the castle weren't in the room, he hugged the human, who wasn't something comfy, neither attached, it was indifferent, but in his own way, showed actual care of his own child. You are old, have you ever wondered what to do after your death? The human who seemed embraced by the demon higher than him actually felt a good warmth on his side, and even with the charismatic voice of his progenitor, Winston could see that he was indeed someone who could understand. It's good to see you too, my father. Winston smiled, as the demon alleviated the narrow his eyes at his son who seemed not to know what to do. The Continental may need someone to take care of me, someone I can trust, and someone trained with the best. You could have made some children, Winston. It would be easier if you had more wives and kids lurking around as I did. Why did you disappoint me, son? The cold king came with his own tone as he proceeded to open and pass the door made something that made both siblings look at him surprised. Did father just joke? Winston said as he looked at his own brother who seemed even more confused than him. I don't know. It's been 30 years since the last time he made something like that, and when they took it as an offense, he killed everyone from the offended family. Stolas proceeded to follow his father. Winston hummed thoughtfully as he watched the appealing door with so many marks. It seemed so elegant and yet so terrifying. Maybe it was his father's collection, something he was going to understand later. That was the man who took us from slaver trades. We were so much in deep SHT, kids without anything in the world, fighting like a dog fight for the sport of SMS, and he appeared, with an innocent smile on his face. While he planned to kill everyone, John gave him just one request: we would be his servants if he freed us, and he made us prove ourselves to be used as his children's bodyguards. He taught my brother and me at the day he found us when we were orphans. He taught most of us until he left him in the care of Ruska Roma Leader, the director. As he trained me personally on how to be an even more refined man and a strong killer, before making me meet the director herself, who promised our mentor that she would protect us and train us in the ways of killing that nobody ever thought she could ever do it. I managed to convince John to work at Continental Organization with me since we both knew our mentors would be the ones leading the hotels, and we made sure to work our best even after our mentor has died. We managed to work as enforcers for a man named Vigo. Man, I think if my mentor was alive he would have made everything to kill Vigo Tarasov. Moxie said as he finished the bottle of vodka, looking at his own boss who seemed to drink another bottle of whiskey as well. Was he a bad boss? Blitzo asked while Moxie answered his question by shaking his head. Vigo was an interesting person. He always had passion for the desires he wanted to accomplish, but sometimes showed part of him who could be like a coward. He looked like someone who wouldn't dirty his hands to kill someone the same way as I and John were trained. If we could have destroyed the entire Russian mafia if we had the right weapons and the right money in our hands. I always thought that even if he was a coward I thought he was a smart person, Moxie said as he glanced at the Blitzo who seemed to him as the silence became clear like a crystal on the air. He always respected and even feared me and John. He even managed to praise me more than once, but after hearing such praise I felt empty, like he wasn't someone worth me to be praised. Since the most important person to me was dead, I think my mentor was right, trying to earn respect. What would respect do, and what would we go but to bottom gapping pit of insecurity we call a soul? Mox, that's cold and even soulless, but if you want my opinion, USCK, that's your answer. Blitzo used his index finger to poke Moxie's head as he insulted him, but instead of making his employee angry, he actually managed to make him smile. Yeah, I know, Moxie smiled as he looked at the hour. Being 3 a.m., making he got up from his seat. It's better for you to go to sleep, sir. I hope you have a good night of sleep until noon, because tomorrow we will not sleep until the mission is over. Alright, I know when I'm not wanted, but it was nice to meet you, Maxim Jovanovich. The demon spoke in Russian one last time before launching himself to the next window, leaving the white-haired demon, to glance once again at the view before going to sleep. Feeling his body under the sheets, he felt the warm embrace of his wife who actually hugged him, giving him good comfort in his sleep. How many you have killed now, John? It was the last thought of Moxie before the nice dreams hit him. As the night showed the good intense BLD smell in the air, a man walked at the door. He felt sore from all the sudden action he had during a long time, but the lights from the street were calling his attention, by opening his door. The man looked at would be a policeman who was in shock at the well-dressed man. Evening, John. The policeman greeted the man who was indoors. Evening, Jimmy. The man who was feeling sore and tired greeted him back, as he may have guessed the reason for the police coming. Noise complain. Noise complain. The police agreed as he nodded his head before turning his head behind the man who spotted a body behind him. Taking his cap off, the man showed a bit of nervousness in his system. Are you working again? No, just sorting some stuff out, John said as he smiled weakly at the man. Oh well, I will be out then. But can you please tune down and clean up then? Moxie always hated when someone got dirt on the house. Jimmy said as the name made John understand how well the words were. And after receiving a nod he then proceeds to turn around and leave. Good night, John. Good night, Jimmy, John said as he closed the door, and looked deeply at the damage the mob has made. Before speaking in Russian. Maxim would have exploded their bodies outside if he found out that they dirt the carpet. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 3. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and CaioCoia on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.